starting really nervous. It's like my worst nightmare. But running for the board is that important to me too, that I'm doing this. Well, thank you for your consideration.
Town Commissioner Kyle Ship.
Hi, I'm Kyle Ship. I'm running for Pittsboro Town Commissioner. I want to thank the NAACP for hosting this and all of you for coming to this. Gene for filming this so more people can see it that weren't able to make it. And to my wife for her support too. It's a surprising process as a first-time candidate. So we came to Pittsboro, we were drawn here because of the small town feeling, the arts and the music that's here, and the rural feel too, which I think is really unique. I'm running because I have the technical expertise to understand how the town works and have had that experience. And I just really care about Pittsboro. So a little history about myself. I was raised in Flint, Michigan, and then I was in the Army, Reserve, did 2 deployments there. That helped me pay for college and get an engineering degree. And that led me eventually to a construction career, sustainable construction, smart buildings, and how we do sort of future development. And so once I moved to Pittsboro, I lived in the ETJ for a while. I life member of the Veterans of Foreign Wars, and I joined the local post here, was elected as the Senior Vice Commander, which I currently serve as. And then moved downtown, live on Hillsborough Street right downtown, and started going to town board meetings and planning board meetings, and was appointed to the planning board about 2 years ago. So I've learned a lot on the planning board and seen a lot of plans come through and a lot of work on the UDO. And I just really want to continue that work on the town board as well. I was also recently accepted to the County Affordable Housing Advisory Board, and I'm really excited about the work that we're able to do there. So I think I have a unique advantage of kind of a background and technical expertise to serve on this board, and I appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Town Commissioner Lonnie West.
Thank you very much. This puts me all the way back to elementary school when everything was done alphabetical order. And so they usually said, okay, Lonnie, you can look on with Jackie Snyder because we don't have enough books, okay? So, not a problem. You can always wrap it up if you're the last one. You know, you can touch on everything. But everybody's already said a lot of the things that I would want to say anyway. I grew up in Cleveland, Tennessee, about 50 miles from Murphy, North Carolina. And when I graduated from high school, there was no money for college, so I joined the Army, which was kind of the thing to do back then. Most of the males that I knew as I was growing up had served either in World War I, World War II, or Korea. So I thought, well, let me join the Army and maybe I can get this money to get college after the Army. Well, I stayed 26 years in the Army, but they sent me to school while I was there. And I was able to get a bachelor's and master's degree while serving with the Army. They would say, okay, but now you'll have to serve 6 more years after you get this. And it's kind of like Burr Rabbit going into Briar Patch. I said, I'm staying anyway, so thank you. My wife and I were looking for a place to live because my daughter and her family moved to Apex. At the time, I was, after my military retirement, of course, I owned a mortgage company in South Carolina. I had 3 offices, Florence, Lake City, and Sumter, South Carolina. We wanted to move up here. We kept driving up, and we could choose anywhere we wanted to go, and we kept coming back to Chatham County. We loved Pittsboro. We drove around Pittsboro. So several years ago, we bought a house over in Silk Hope area, lived there for 10 or 12 years. And in 2012, I think, we moved into Chatham Forest, and the rest is history. One of the things that happened when I was leaving for my first military service, a bunch of these guys who were sitting around, they said, don't ever volunteer for anything. And they had told me about that before. They had given me other advice. They said, don't drive over 50 miles an hour, don't drink any liquor, and stay away from those wild girls in Polk County. I couldn't wait to volunteer. They had been wrong about everything else up to that point. I have, in Chatham County, I've worked for the county at first and was the executive director of the Council on Aging. And with a fantastic board, which included Ms. Mary Nettles, we were able to pay off the mortgage of that senior center and build a new senior center inside our city. I've served on several boards, the transportation board. I've served on the Affordable Housing Board 3 times, and we are doing some great work there. And the town board that is working right now in Pittsburgh is coming up with some really good ideas, and I think that is going to help alleviate the affordable housing problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you. At this time, I would turn part of the program over to Beverly Bland, Sam Cooper, and Carl Pajer for questions.
Whenever I get a mouthful of food, Mary gives me the mic. Are there any questions from the audience? If you wish, you can raise your hand and we'll just recognize you, or you can write it down on a card and one of us can read it. Beverly's coming up here with a whole fistful of questions.
Start with these.
Okay.
We have the one hand up. We have a hand up.
Okay, go ahead, Liz.
This is going to sound like a very silly question, but I just wanted to ask all the candidates if they have had any thoughts about any clever ideas about how the town could maybe make more money outside of the slowly growing tax base. And I know this is a very simple question, but anyway, the town needs more money.
That is not a silly question, Liz. That is an excellent question. And I'm very concerned that currently 92% of our revenue is residential. And we need to broaden our tax base.
That's not my question.
We have
Outside the tax base.
outside of the tax base.
Outside the
So
tax
what was your question again?
The question was, if any of the candidates had any ideas about the town generating more revenue outside of taxes, besides slowly growing the tax base. So, did anyone have any other ideas?
Well, currently, there are some revenue streams that are creative. For instance, how we treat our sewer, we are actually selling reuse clean water to 3M. That's a creative way that we can treat our sewer and generate revenue. It's not a traditional way of doing business, but we do have a plant that can use that reused water. So that's one idea.
I'm not sure who got the money for it, but the idea of closing down Hillsborough Street and doing that meal service and everything, that seemed to be very popular thing and brought in a lot of people, so maybe there's a way to, for the town to gain money from that. I'm not sure if they did, I don't know how that works.
Liz, this is a great question. It really is outside the box, and the two things that leap to my mind is that in other states, local governments do have the ability to establish new utilities. Those are governed by law, of course, and there's parameters for it. But for example, there are many, actually, in North Carolina, electric utilities that are municipally owned. They are public-owned electric utilities. And the way that solar and other renewable energies are plummeting in cost, it might make sense for us to look into. It may be harebrained, but it might be worth looking into establishing a public utility. Or if not that far, we could do as Fayetteville, City of Fayetteville has done with their water sewer utility. They have augmented forms of renewable energy and battery storage to reduce the cost of their operations by dint of the fact that they're getting free electricity. Now, another consideration that's unfortunately been ruled out by the state legislature is the idea of a broadband utility. Internet is the lifeblood of our communities, and it's an important tool we have to leverage, especially for rural communities. But as Pittsboro grows, I was very hopeful that Chatham Park would be able to leverage their relationships to help us get fiber optic capabilities in downtown. That didn't happen. But a broadband utility has been set up in North Carolina. The city of Wilson did it, and then immediately the state legislature made it illegal for more municipalities to do that. By the way, that's the small government dominated legislature at that time that prohibited municipalities from standing up utilities for broadband internet. I think there's a lot of things that we could consider, and then not outside of the growing tax base, but inside the growing tax base. I think we really need to emphasize those businesses that will come here that will not just do business in town, but will do business elsewhere. So corporate headquarters, high-tech manufacturing, and maybe even mom and pop shops that do eBay sales. You know, they actually will contribute to the tax base so long as their patrons are coding in the 9-digit zip code. Isn't that a peculiar piece of information not many people knew? So, thank you.
Sir, back.
Good morning. A lot of questions I'd like to ask, but I'm going to ask the one that seems to be most pervasive. And although I do not pretend to speak for all black people, what I will say is this, and I have been approached. How long will we continue to let symbols that represent hate, murder, lynching, rape, fly in the faces of black people who those symbols really are oppressive to? I could not erect statues of Nazi soldiers or fly a swastika flag, but yet every day we have to see those symbols. And now a flag has been erected across the street from the school that my mom went to, which is a black high school, named by a black man, where the black kids have to see every day. Now I can answer my own questions, and I know to most folks it don't matter. Maybe it's a conversation we as black people need to have separately. But how long will this continue to happen? Because it makes black people feel as though we're still considered 3/5 of a person. Thank you.
I appreciate your question, and I'd just like to piggyback one more comment concerning that onto this, that you can address these. Do you feel that the board has a role in healing the town once the statue is removed? And how or what will you do?
Thank you for this very important question and topic. Recently, I have been asked to be part of community discussions related to both the symbols that are going up and also about what will happen with the statue. I think it's very important that as elected officials and as candidates for office at this time, our community is feeling a sense of actual danger. And I feel it's the responsibility of an elected official to work with all of the federal, state, local agencies, now our school board, on solutions. It doesn't, in my opinion, help a situation when an elected official states a grandiose emotional response to a very emotional and right now dangerous circumstance. I think we should be part of the discussions and listening, and I am doing that. I did so last week with some of our fellow elected officials and persons that really wanted, of all race and Creed that wanted to have that discussion and figure out some creative solutions. I think the most important thing we can do as elected officials is see to the safety of our citizens at this juncture. After the danger subsides, then I think that we can move forward with some proactive solutions. But to be making statements right now at a really critical time where our citizens need to be kept safe would not be a good service to our citizens. I do think that the discussions need to keep happening, and I'm grateful to continuously be a part of those discussions. Does the town have a role in the healing? Absolutely, and I think that's what I'm trying to suggest here, and I think that some other elected officials have done the same, that healing begins with listening and caring and recognizing that we're neighbors. We're not a letter next to our name on a ballot, and we are a community. And if we have a history of loving each other and caring for one another and seeing to the best of our community, then as elected leaders and as community leaders, we can help effect that change. I hope that answers part of your question.
Yes, I do.
And then, thank you very much for the opportunity to address it.
Yes, thanks very much for that question. Look, we can talk about this thing forever. Here's the deal, as far as I'm concerned. The chair of the County Board of Commissioners and the Board of Commissioners for Chatham County did exactly the right thing. They did a gutsy move, and they did what should be done. I've heard all this nonsense about, well, this is a symbol of our heritage. This is honoring some poor kid that got drafted into fighting this war. It is not. It's a symbol of a cause, and that cause was the right of one human being to own another. And we got past that after hundreds of thousands died, and then we allowed something almost as evil, Jim Crow, state-sponsored segregation, to rule over half of this country. And finally, with the bravery of African Americans and some whites, we were able to finally break that down. So let's not fool ourselves that this is, a two-sided issue as far as I'm concerned. It's not. I look forward to the day that that statue disappears. And then we start to heal. And one of the things I'm going to be working very hard for is to see if we can't get a statue of George Moses Horton put in the place of that statue that's there now. I think that will do a whole lot to begin the healing within this community. I think we have to speak up plainly and clearly on this topic. If we don't, I think we're hiding. We have a chance here to make this community whole. We have a chance here to make our African American brethren, our Latinos, our gay, our trans, to all feel perfectly welcome in this community. And we need to all join hands to do that. And we start out by telling the truth about what represents what.
As someone that was born and raised here in Pittsburgh, the statue up there, to me, has never represented any of this white supremacy, racism, or anything. No hate to me. That's the way I perceive it. I have nothing to regarding that had ever been spoken to me in that way. I ran the halls of this courthouse in the 60s and 70s. Never, my grandfather, father, ever said anything about the statue being racism. With that said, definitely I'm not supportive of these Confederate flags in town. I have talked to numerous gentlemen that are with these organizations. I begged them, pleaded them to take them down. I have asked, what does the town need to do? Of course, they say they're within the town ordinance now. I don't know the solution, I really don't. I think we really need to work together. These protests in town, I've had to shut my restaurant down early. Business is off, all businesses downtown are off. It's really dividing the town. You know, if I had a solution right now, I'd put it out there and let you know what it is, but I think, like Jim said, we need to work together as a group and come together as a town. Thank you.
Sure. You got something to say?
Yeah, okay, well, he was raising his hand and I don't want to ignore someone. Sorry.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I have a problem with the statue. I have a problem with the flags. I don't want the statue torn down illegally because that's just gonna make it even worse. We need a solution that works and get it gone, but don't tear it down illegally.
Excuse me. Don't you think we ought to educate the people that the South didn't win the war?
No, sir.
They don't have the right to put up any flags,
No,
any
sir.
statues.
I agree.
You don't do that whenever you go to a country and take it over. So therefore, the North won the war. So teach them that they don't have that right. Don't you think that would be a good start?
That would be a great start.
Because they have not been educated.
You're exactly right.
Well, if they've been educated, it's miseducated, but I think the biggest problem is not educated into civics.
Yeah, pass it.
Okay, anybody else commenting on the question? Yes.
Sure.
I would like to hear from everyone on the panel regarding that question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, agreed. So, every town I go to, actually, I look for monuments to soldiers, because I am one, and that's really important to me. When I came to this town, that's what I looked at that as. And I know a lot of other people do. It says right on the statue, CSA 1861 to 1865, which is when the Confederate States was over and done. So the Confederate flags, I don't understand. I do know that they are protected speech, but I think there has to be something that we can do about them, particularly across from the school. And I've been out in the community talking to folks, and I know that those flags are a major problem, and I see the problem, and I see the strife that they have brought to this town that I came to because it's a very open, welcoming town. And as Jay said, it is affecting local businesses. Businesses are closing on the circle. I live downtown. I don't want to go walk by the protesters myself, and I, can only try to imagine what other people in town feel like. So I do. I'm concerned overall. I appreciate I can't imagine I'm gonna go off the register maybe a second, but the treatment that people had coming home from Vietnam, and I didn't have that treatment when I came home because Vietnam veterans came and met me every single time I came home. I think that's really important, but I think the people with the flags up are tying that to that statue, which it may have always been tied to it, and I don't think that, that they can remain.
Thank you.
I think that the county has made the right decision in wanting to remove the statue. I think that it's something that perhaps, it does belong in the center of our town. And I think the flags are just terrible. But I think it gives the town the opportunity to let the rest of the state, the rest of the world know that this isn't us, that we as neighbors and citizens and business owners and leaders need to come together and come up with a great statement. Whatever that might be, I don't know what it is, and I'd love input from everybody here, how we can tell the rest of the world that this is not us, and we don't like it at all.
As a former soldier for 26 years, I can tell you, in the military, a lot of people think it's very autocratic and they make decisions and then you follow that. You can actually argue in the military. You can talk and give other ideas and everything until the commander makes the decision. And once he makes the decision, it's aye, sir, and you carry on. That is what the local people that are protesting the removal of the statue have not learned. Once a decision is made, then you go on. You know, that's the decision of the populace, the elected officials, and you should follow that. That is my opinion, regardless of whatever feelings someone had before. Once the decision is made, that's it. Let's move forward.
I want to thank you, Mayor Hall, for this question. I think it's a really, really important question. And Carl, thank you for the follow-up question. And I also want to express great gratitude to Jim Knox for being so candid and so straightforward. I agree with much of what has been said. I think that the challenge here, I'm going to be a little bit radical and step out. I'm a white male, and so I will never fully understand what it's like to be a person of color or another minority that has experienced discrimination or worse. But I was raised to listen and raised to understand the importance of keeping an open mind, and engaging in difficult conversations is actually something that I'm fairly comfortable with. I don't know why, I'm just peculiarly equipped with that. But I also want to express great gratitude to Commissioner and Mayor Pro Tempore Pamela Baldwin, whom I sit next to on the board, whom I'm honored to serve with, because she said regarding the statue, it's not about the statue, it's about what's in our hearts, what's in people's hearts. And Bridget Perry got it exactly right, that this is an opportunity for our community to really dive into these conversations and understand one another's humanity. It's all so easy to see someone else as the other. That is something that I confess, as a white male, born and raised in the South, I am grappling with myself. I am grappling with my own internalized racism. As Mike Wiley, my neighbor in Chatham Forest, pointed out during the speeches to the county commissioners who made this decision, racism is like water, and for white folks, we can't describe water. It's like for a fish in water. The fish can't describe the water. We can't describe racism. We have to engage these conversations constantly if we are to hope to become better people and improve our society. The board can certainly contribute to this in many ways, and I am very open to ideas on how that should happen. Thank you.